G'day and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I want to go through the final exercise that I think you should absolutely be doing every day, but probably aren't. Now, this exercise is a little bit different to some of the other exercises we've done in this series so far, in that it's not just a stretch. This exercise definitely will help with your mobility, but it'll also help make you a little bit stronger. But it also works really hard on the technique of moving a certain way that I think everybody needs to focus on to prevent a lot of dysfunction that we see day to day. Now, this exercise we're going to go through, as you can see, essentially requires a stick of some sort, which a broomstick would be perfectly fine. And we're going to improve what's called your ability to hip hinge. Now, what this tends to be, and why this is so important, is that as human beings, we have these amazing joints called hips. And when we're moving and bending and twisting, we should have the capacity to put a majority of our movement through our hips and our knees and not through our backs. And one of the things that I see day to day with a lot of patients is that one of the main reasons why we tend to get a lot of low back pain, particularly in moving and doing things, is that not only are our hip joints a bit more restricted than usual, but we've gotten into the habit of putting a hinge through our lower back when we're bending and sitting or doing anything, instead of having that hip a couple of inches down lower through our hip joints, which are much more advantageous to use when moving and lifting things going forwards. So what I want you to do with this exercise is, if you can grab a stick of your choice, I'd like you to place that stick between your butt cheeks on your tailbone, but also, if you're up nice and tall, between your shoulder blades as well. And what should happen is, if you're up nice and tall, there should be a small gap down at the base of your lower back that you can slide your hand into to hold that stick. Now, obviously, if you struggle to get back there, you can hold the stick down a little bit lower if you want to. You can hold it up a little bit higher if you want to as well. It doesn't matter as long as you feel like you can maintain this position to give you some feedback. And the reason why a stick's really important here is because the stick represents your ability to maintain a straight back while hinging through your hips and your knees if needed. So this hip hinge or good morning exercise requires you to be up nice and tall with your hand in your back. And what I want you to think of is, as you hinge forwards, imagine that the hinge is just below your butt cheeks, where that gluteal fold is, where your bottom meets your thigh. Imagine that as you're leaning forwards, you're lifting your bottom off the back of your thighs and you're keeping your chest up, essentially. So I don't want you to feel like you're like arching backwards, but you should feel like as you're leaning forwards, that this gap doesn't change. More so, you should also feel like the contact point in the middle of your back and the contact point through your pelvis also doesn't change. So if you get to the point where you start to bend and you feel like the gap's gone and you've lost that contact, then clearly it's a signal that you're bending your back when you shouldn't. Now, for me, clinically, most people should be able to be up nice and tall, belly drawn in, legs staying straight, and hip hinge somewhere close to about 90 degrees before they feel like they start to lose the conditions that we set out before. But we tend to see a lot of people that have low back pain or hip pain or even hamstring dysfunction probably find that when they get to about 30 or so degrees, they start to really lose that position, or they feel really tight through their hamstrings. So this is a fantastic exercise that if I can get you to practice 10 or 15 of these movements, going as far down as you feel comfortable and paying attention to when you notice some tightness in your hamstrings and before you lose that good spinal position, 10 or 15 of these each day is a fantastic way to lengthen that area, to strengthen that area, because these muscles are the ones that are pulling you back up as they are the ones that are lengthening as you go down. But it's also a great way to integrate a good spinal position into what you're doing. And the reason why I want you to practice this is, not only is it really important to be able to do that with the stick, but you also have to have the confidence and the competence to make sure that when you're doing this in day-to-day life, that nothing is genuinely changing. So if you have your hands, one hand at your chest, one hand just above your pelvis there, that should maintain the same distance apart, irrespective of what you're doing and how you're moving, repetitiously or independently over time. So not only would I like you to practice this as an official exercise each day, just to get used to how that motion feels, but please try and do it the same way every time. If you're picking something up off the ground, if you're leaning forward into the sink to do some dishes, if you're doing something at a tabletop where you would normally keep your hips forwards and then leaning through your back, throw that bottom back, maintain that hip hinge position, so that you're essentially looking down from your hips, not looking down from a section of your spine or a section of your neck. Place that hinge away from your spine, put it back into your hips through an area that can tolerate strong amounts of load over time, and just become robotic in a sense where you just get used to bending and flexing through those hips for day-to-day tasks throughout the day. So, for example, if I want to pick up this pillow, in theory, I shouldn't just bend over and pick it up because it's a light, soft pillow. Ideally, I should be able to bend down as far as I can through my hips and then bend my knees to make up the difference. So whether you're lifting something heavy, something light, something simple, or something tricky, that same hip hinge pattern is a fantastic one to build into your repertoire to free up a lot of the restrictions in this area, but also to tell your brain and nervous system how you would like to move going forwards. So for the purposes of having healthy hips and a healthy functioning low back, I'd strongly encourage you to practice that hip hinge with a stick, paying close attention to exactly when you feel you start to lose that good spinal shape, not going into that position until you feel you've developed the capacity to move into that position comfortably, and then continue to work on that and integrate that into your day-to-day life so that you start to improve the way that you're doing things over time. So again, I genuinely hope that was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments below how you found that movement capacity was for you. If you enjoy that, please consider leaving a like on the video, consider subscribing to the channel if you're new. But with that being said, once again, I genuinely hope that was useful for you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.